I'm Noah Brown, a 27-year-old office worker. I can live like a normal person now, but I was very poor growing up. To give you a sense of how impoverished we were, we rarely ate dinner at home. My mother worked till midnight and went to work early in the morning, yet life was still difficult. As a result, she was unable to make dinner due to a lack of both time and money. My mother worked so hard because of the debt that my father had incurred. My father fled, leaving my mother as his sole guarantor. My mother raised me on her own while repaying the debt. That is why I respect my mother. I liked her cooking the best, even if it was only in the morning. Even though I was always hungry, I ate lunch at school. But in the evening, even if I could smell the lovely aromas flowing from other people's homes, I couldn't eat anything. It was hard, so after school I would wander around town to distract myself. One day, when I was walking alone as usual, for some reason, I saw someone wandering around with a lunchbox. But sure hope because she was dressed in a school uniform. I figured she was a high school student. She had long black hair and a mole under her left eye.
Hey, are you gonna throw it away?
As media, I was so surprised that I called out to her. She looked at me as if she was embarrassed at me for suddenly talking to her.
Why do you care? I'm full.
I see, it's just that looks delicious.
It's not good at all. Even if I'm hungry, I don't want to eat this.
I'm very hungry, I wish I could eat it.
Then, do you want it?
Seriously.
I quickly replied, and she took me to a nearby park. There, I sat down on a bench, and she opened the lunchbox in front of me.
That was delicious, thank you.
The lunchbox contents were all delicious foods I'd never tried before. I was so happy that I ate it right up.
Gosh, you eat so fast. Were you that hungry?
Yeah, I usually eat only twice a day.
What, how come?
When I told her the reason, she was very surprised. We parted ways that day, but I ran into her again the next day in front of the same convenience store. She was wandering around with her lunchbox in her hand again. I rushed up to her, but this time, she wasn't trying to toss it away.
Actions, I risked me we and to steer cultural, I was about to throw it away again. But then I remembered you and was looking for you. Do you want to eat again?
Sure, yes.
What's your name?
Noah Brown, the Seasonal 4th grade. What's your name?
My name is Saphir. I'm a senior in high school. Nice to meet you.
I would meet Saphir at the park every day after that, and she would share her meal with me. Being able to eat a full supper was a joy I would not swap for anything. After about a week of living, the contents of the lunchbox changed.
You know, you said the other day that you like sweet omelets. It's here.
No way. Yes.
Also, you said you don't like carrots. However, if you chop them into small pieces like this and garnish them with mayonnaise, they taste nice. Try it.
Seriously, you were right. It's delicious.
Saphir's meal was so good that I even liked carrots, which I had never liked before. At first, her lunchbox contained random stuff, but once I communicated my preferences and dislikes, my preferences were mirrored, and the lunchbox was filled with different colors. It quickly became my favorite meal of the day. It wasn't different from my mother's cooking.
I wonder what's inside. Um,
This could be because lunchboxes provided a unique sensation of excitement. Saphir was dressed in the uniform of a well-known school for wealthy girls in the city. Her demeanor was refined and she appeared to be from a different world than mine. Why would such a person be so kind to me? Why did Saphir have food she didn't want in the first place? Looking back, it was an odd story, but I was afraid that if I offended Saphir, I wouldn't be allowed to eat them anymore. So at the time, I would take them without asking anything. However, such happy days did not last long. When spring came, today will be the last day I'm sharing meals with you. I can't come here anymore. I'm sorry.
That's what Saphir said. I didn't know why she disappeared at the time.
But now I realize that she probably left her hometown to go to college. It was the last time I ate my lunch, which was solely my favorite items. I wondered if I was returning to the days when I could and eat supper. But before Saphir vanished, she told me about a local government-run child support community center. I went there every day since they serve free food to children. Although I was no longer hungry, saying goodbye to Sophia was difficult. I'll never forget Saphira's generosity in sharing a dinner with me, a stranger. These early experiences made me acutely aware that food is essential for life. There is no greater symbol of riches and happiness than the ability to eat delicious cuisine. With this in mind, I studied hard after entering junior high school in order to work in the culinary industry. As a result, I was able to secure a position with a prominent restaurant consulting firm. I was confident that I could assist my mother from that point on. When I got my first paycheck, I treated my mother to a lavish 3-course French lunch. As a result, I was able to secure a position with a prominent restaurant consulting firm. I was confident that I could assist my mother from that point on. With this in mind, I studied hard after entering junior high school in order to work in the culinary industry. When I got my first paycheck, I treated my mother to a lavish 3-course French lunch. But my mother's cooking and Sophia's lunch were still the best foods for me. That was the one constant no matter how many delicious foods I ate. 5 years after joining the company, at the age of 2007, I was given my first big job. I was supposed to provide consultancy services for a new dining establishment that would include creative cuisines and open soon. The targets were office workers. The restaurant offered a wide variety of menus from Western to Japanese cuisine. A to-go service was also planned. That way, people would come to buy lunch due to the location of the restaurant. We put a lot of effort into the interior design and advertising, but the food was the most important aspect. I had many meetings with the owner, but perhaps because of the high level of skill required, it was difficult to find a main chef for the restaurant. For market research, I walked around the neighborhood eating at restaurants. One restaurant caught my attention. Although it is a small shop, there were no disappointments, and all of the lunchboxes were great. Yes. I had to investigate a lot of restaurants, but I found myself going to this lunchbox store all the time. Even though there were no new menu options, I constantly wanted to return. I wondered who is cooking this kind of food. The only person in the store was an unfriendly elderly owner. The actual cook was said to be in the kitchen in the back. When I glanced into the kitchen, I noticed someone wearing a pink apron, but I couldn't see her face. Bacterial, I was on my way back to work one day when I bought a lunchbox as usual. Then I heard angry voices coming from the alley behind the store.
Jesus Christ, you can quit anytime you want?
The owner snarled at another person and went back to the store. I casually looked at the woman and saw that she was wearing a pink apron. Wait a minute. Is she the cook? Oh, hold on a second. Actually, I was taken aback, but I kept walking toward her. It was Sophia, the girl who gave me food when I was in elementary school. It had been more than 15 years since then, so my memory was vague. But as soon as our eyes met, I remembered her clearly. She appeared fatigued, but her gorgeous face and the mole beneath her left eye remained the same.
Sophia, I exclaimed.
Do we know each other?
Yes, it's Mina Brown. Don't you remember when I was in elementary school, we shared your lunch at the park?
No way, are you Noah?
Me too. I was so happy to see her again by chance that I invited her to dinner that night. I took her to an Italian restaurant where I had been hired to advise with my senior colleague.
I'll leave.
How come? I asked.
I can tell that just by looking at it, and it looks expensive. Honestly, I don't have any money.
Oh, no, don't worry about it. It's on me.
I had planned to pay everything from the start, so I dragged Sophia back to the restaurant. After entering the private room, I ordered the most popular menus and drinks one after another.
Noah, you've changed a lot, huh? I guess our roles have flipped.
She looked at me as I finished ordering and said so shyly. Sophia was dressed in a torn cardigan and pants. Her hair was not well groomed. Her clothing was always impeccable when she was in high school, but that girl was nowhere to be seen now. I wondered what had happened during the period I couldn't see her.
Then, perhaps sensing the awkward silence, Sophia started explaining to me what had happened up to that day. Have you heard of Don Miller Corporation, Noah?
Of course, so it's a big company famous in our hometown, isn't it?
It's actually my father's company. My name is Sophia Miller.
Excuse me.
Sophia was the daughter of the CEO. I was taken aback, but then it all made sense. That is why she attended a well-known private school for wealthy girls, and that's why she was always dressed nicely. Sophia lived a wealthy life that was the envy of everyone, but her family, however, did not get along. My mother passed away from illness, and my father was living with his mistress. My sister, who's 5 years older than me, was always hanging out with her friends. I just had a bad housekeeper at home with me, and I've always craved the comfort of family. Sophia said the meal Sophia was about to throw away that day was made by the housekeeper. However, the contents were merely side dishes that Sophia detested, Sophia explained. The housekeeper appeared to be bullying Sophia, who's going through a rebellious phase at the time.
It did actually, Creation. I didn't care to eat it in the least, and I'd rather starve to death than eat it. But just as I was going to toss it away, you came up to me with dazzling eyes and asked me if I was going to throw it away, Sophia recalled. That's when I arrived home and washed my lunchbox that day. I felt odd, Sophia shared.
For meals she believed were only to feed her stomach could have a deeper meaning, I thought. That's what Sophia thought, and she wanted to watch my face eating deliciously again. That's why she started to go to the park with me.
Actually, the housekeeper prepared the lunch. Later on, however, I was the one who cooked them, Sophia admitted.
I knew it. I could tell the appearance and taste had changed. So you were the one doing the cooking, I said.
Yes, you were the only person who helped me feel better. I started to enjoy trying to make things to suit your tastes and to eliminate your likes and dislikes, Sophia confessed.
Sophia went to college to study culinary science after discovering her love of cooking. However, her father's company went bankrupt while she was still in school. Sophia dropped out of college and the family split up. Sophia continued to work hard, acquiring certifications as chef and a nutritionist. However, when Sophia's spendthrift sister came knocking on her door to plead for money, she struck rock bottom. It's actually even harder. Sophia had to pay off her older sister's debt when she went away with a guy. According to her, that's why she was forced to live in poverty.
I got sick and was unable to work full-time. As a result, I now work at the lunch shop during the day and at the factory at night, Sophia explained.
I said but I believe the working conditions at that store are horrible. With your skills, I'm sure you could work at another place. I suggested...
I'm already 35, and it's impossible. I'm rather worried that he will fire me, Sophia replied.
Her family saddled her with their debt, and she had to suffer the consequences. I looked down as I sympathized with her story. However, a feeling other than sympathy emerged in my heart. Sophia, despite her poverty, worked hard and looked forward to the future. However, a feeling other than sympathy emerged in my heart. Sophia, despite her poverty, worked hard and looked forward to the future. My experience was similar to how she developed an interest in scene and worked hard. I looked straight at her and said, "You mentioned previously that our roles were reversed, correct? Then, it's my turn. I will help you." Sophia was puzzled, but I was determined. I had always wanted to repay the favor someday. That was the moment. A few days later, I took Sophia to the dining bar and introduced her to the owner. Requested Sophia to cook some dishes for the owner since he wanted her to try her hand at cooking.
I'd say it should be fine.
In cooperation with the owner, we offered Sophia enough incentives to keep her from working several jobs, and we hired her. As a result, the restaurant prospered. People have been drawn to the restaurant by word of mouth, and the number of customers is growing. The most popular item was the to-go lunchbox. Sophia devised a number of new menu items to appeal to the clientele. It became famous, and the media even came to interview her. I was there too as a consultant. When asked what made the restaurant so appealing, Sophia replied, It is the owners and my the consultants. Sensitiveness. Eventually, I'd like to provide to-go lunches to children of working parents. Hearing that, I realized something. Sophia looked at me and smiled happily. Even if you are poor in material terms, you can be rich in spirit. My mother and Sophia taught me that. I'm considering it's inviting her to volunteer at a children's health center. I want to keep doing everything I can to deliver wonderful meals to as many people as possible. This year marks the 5th anniversary of my marriage. I recently had a child and I'm learning to cook, which is something I am not used to as a homemaker. My daily life is free of problems, but there is one thing that bothers me. My mother-in-law. I don't recall having many conversations with her, so I was terrified because I had no idea what she thought of me. When I thought about my mother-in-law, I felt uneasy about a variety of issues. My father-in-law had died and my husband was concerned about my mother-in-law living alone.
However, she hadn't done anything wrong to me.
And since I understand my husband's concern, I was going to accept it. However, my husband later told me what his mother had told him. She absolutely didn't want to share the house with us because it would be too suffocating. She said, "Now that you're married, you should spend time together as husband and wife." I was relieved to hear that, but I was also disappointed because I assumed she didn't like me after all. But there was no battle between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law between us, as I frequently hear from my friends. Of course, I definitely did not want to argue with my mother-in-law. So I was relieved when there was no more talk of sharing the house. I do have occasions to interact with my mother-in-law, such as when I went to greet her for the New Year's holiday.
But within 30 minutes, she said to me, you shouldn't stay here for so long. Go home and relax.
I considered myself fortunate to be able to return home early, but I also felt kind of lonely and confused. I was worried that my mother-in-law disliked me because we hadn't had a chance to talk like sections.
My mother-in-law is still working, and I think it's because she has a fairly straightforward personality that I got the impression she was a little scary. But my opinion and anxiety about my mother-in-law shifted one day. One day, my husband left something at my mother-in-law's house.
He had forgotten his bag containing materials for work, and I had no idea what to do.
But because he goes there so frequently, he appears to have forgotten something. My husband said he really needs it tomorrow and that he knows the material is there because he spoke with my mother and Ashton approvers while on the phone, so it's fine.
But he asked me to go and get it for him because he couldn't pick it up today. I had no reason to refuse because I am a housewife, so I decided to take the child and go pick it up.
So I was considering purchasing some pastries and giving them to her as a gift, since it would be impolite to leave without one.
So I was thinking of purchasing some pastries and giving them to her as a gift. How fierce. I was at a loss for what to do, and texted my husband, asking him about his mother's preferences.
Make something for her to eat and bring it to her. I'm sure she'll appreciate it.
But I was worried about what to bring. I didn't know anything about my mother-in-law's preferences since I was always with my husband.
She doesn't have a preference, so I believe she will be content with anything. But
I knew I couldn't make a mistake here. After thinking a lot, I came up with an idea. Even though I had no idea what my mother-in-law liked, if my husband liked it, perhaps she would as well. Faced with that, I immediately took action. I made stew, fried fish, and fried rice right away. My husband enjoys all of these foods. I put the rice and the stew in a Tupperware and left to get the items my husband had forgotten. When I arrived at my mother-in-law's house, I received my husband's bag and took out the food I prepared. You're welcome to eat them for dinner. I'm not sure if you like them.
Don't you want to join me for dinner?
Sure, but I responded in a stiff, strange tone, feeling anxious about what she would say or if she would criticize me. Has no idea what my mother-in-law thinks of me. What will she say to me? Maybe they'll say something about the meal's flavor. To be honest, I was so anxious. But I felt it would be impolite to refuse in this situation, so I went inside. I began preparing the meal as soon as I got inside the house, considering what I would say if she criticized me.
This looks delicious. I haven't had a home-cooked meal in decades.
I was relieved and ate with my mother-in-law, talking about my husband's favorite foods, our children, and various other things that I didn't have a chance to chat about yet. About things that I didn't have a chance to chat about yet. Nothing like the image I had of her. She was nothing like the image I had of her, a sweet person with a very gentle smile. While we were having tea, during dinner, I had the opportunity to talk with my mother-in-law about various things that I didn't have a chance to chat about yet. During dinner, I had the opportunity to talk with my mother-in-law about various things that I didn't have a chance to chat about yet. So, I avoided interacting with you, fearing that I would make you feel uncomfortable. Happy, my mother-in-law said, I'm glad that the first meal my daughter prepared was a home-cooked meal, and I haven't had one in a long time. It's delicious and pleasant. Now that we're here together, it's like a dream come true. I'm overjoyed. She sobbed, her voice choking up with tears. Victory, importantly, I received a phone call from my husband while we were both in tears. He was surprised to find me in tears and sniffing when I answered the phone.
What's wrong?
I'm having an emotional outburst with your mother. Don't forget to bring my bag. I complained to my husband about his cold response. My relationship with my mother-in-law gradually improved after that incident.
Busters, I also started taking my children to my mother-in-law's house to bring her some food.
She used to call my husband's cell phone whenever she needed to reach us.
Something else happened during such a pleasant change that moved me.
Just to inform him, I said,
I'll see your mother again next week on Monday or Tuesday. Later on, my mother called to tell me that she had eaten a home-cooked meal for the first time in decades. And he continued, since my father died when I was a child, she's been trying to keep her head up and raise me on her own. Mom is a strong woman, so she doesn't say it, but I think she missed me a lot when I got married, but then she ate your meal. She was so happy. My mother-in-law used to call my husband's cell phone whenever she needed to reach us, But she's now calling me on the house phone. Something else happened during such a pleasant change that moved me. People. I was relieved to discover that my husband is a good person and that we are living happily. I listened quietly to my husband's long story. My eyes were welling up with tears, hearing what my husband had made me truly happy. She realized that I had married the right person and told me that her hard work had finally paid off. My eyes couldn't keep the tears from streaming down my cheeks any longer. Me, but my husband didn't seem to mind. He straightened his back and said, "Thank you for marrying me. Thank you for getting along with my mother." My husband bowed his head, sobbing. My heart was full. It's like seeing him like that, and I burst out crying. Except for when our child was born, I've never seen my husband cry. My husband was crying just as hard as I was. It was a minor incident with my mother in That's not newly at we, but I never expected it to have such an impact on me. We used to fight over insignificant things when we were dating. I don't think I'm a good wife in comparison to a homemaker who his work, childcare, and a full-time job. I am probably not as supportive of my husband as I should be. However, I realized how fortunate I was to have such a wonderful husband and mother-in-law. They made me happy too. I am filled with gratitude. I still cry just remembering the incident. My husband and I are currently discussing the possibility of sharing the house with my mother-in-law. He's like, once more. I like to think of a way for us to live happily together as a family, whether we live together or not. I don't know how long I'll be with my husband and mother-in-law, but I'll forget this feeling. Receive a good person and living happily. Happy? He straightened his back and said, "Thank you for marrying me. Thank you for getting along with my mother." Getting along with my mother. Burst out crying. My husband was crying just as hard as Alpina's. We used to fight over insignificant things when we were dating. I'm probably not as supportive of my husband as I should be. Other in-law. They made me happy too. Stigquilas. This way for us to live happily together as a family, whether we live together or not. Feeling.